My name is Asma Ibrahim, and as a professional, I am an archaeologist and a museologist. And I worked for Department of Archaeology and Museums for about 20 years in a capacity of curator, assistant director, and director of the National Museum. In the year 2006, State Bank of Pakistan announced to have somebody to establish their central bank's museum, the first monetary museum of Pakistan. So I was selected for that job, and I took up the job. First, I did the conservation of this heritage building, which is Imperial Bank of India's building from 1920s, and then I acquired the collection. I trained the people, and since then I'm working as director State Bank Museum. But in the meantime, I keep taking different projects of archaeology. Well, like archaeology is my first passion, so I don't leave it, and I'm happy that State Bank allows me to carry out my projects. So I go quite often for excavations once in a year. So for the last 7 or 8 years, we have been excavating at the site of Bambor. And in the meantime, while all this was going on, we applied for US Ambassador's Cultural Preservation grant, and our NGO, which is Seas Pakistan. So we won the project, and we got the grant to do the conservation of Varun Dev Temple. Now the question arises that why Varun Dev Temple? So because I've been visiting this, me and our colleagues, we have been visiting this temple since long, and for the last 5 or 6 years we noticed that it's going to crumble down very quickly because it was tilting because of the sea winds and other environmental conditions, and it was in a very precarious condition. So this was one of the main reasons that we went for this project.
So you mean, Dr. Asma, that it was your selection to work on Varun Dev?
Yes, it was our own selection. And like for this grant, you have to submit your proposal, and you have to prepare a really great proposal. It's a very difficult grant to get, as we all know. So we made I think so, we made a good project, and it got approved. And
when did it start, the renovation itself?
It was a 2 years project, and we started in 2016, and in 2 years, this year February, we finished the project, and we had this ceremony of finishing ceremony, and US Consul General and other officials came for that. And
how did you work? I mean, in terms, because of course it is a Hindu temple, how did you work to make this renovation? I don't know about architectural patterns or other items like this.
Yeah, the major issue was actually the crumbling of the stone and the shikara. Shikara was tilting, which was very difficult actually. It is at the top of the temple, and then there were two columns on which this whole structure was standing in front of, which is called mandap. And so these were the major problems in this temple which we had to address. So the shikara is, as you know, it's a conical thing, and it is very thin at the top. So we didn't know how to reach at the top. So we devised kind of a mechanical instrument. First let me explain that in our team we had artists, we had stone carvers, we had architect. So it was kind of a multidisciplinary team, and artist's role was very important in this.
So finally, about how many people did work on the project?
Yeah, we keep changing people, the teams, because initially we documented the whole temple. Each stone was documented, measured. So initially it took some time with the team, which were computer operators and the surveyor and the drawing person and the architect. So we documented the whole thing before starting any process. Then we studied the problems of the building. We diagnosed, each monument where we go for conservation, it's like a patient, and each case is different. So we are very cautious before starting a work, that we should diagnose. So the major problem was the tilting of the structure. and it was just the right time that we intervened, and US ambassadors, fund people also realized that it's very important that we should save that, especially in these times when the area was under the Pakistan Navy and it was difficult to reach there. So when we started the project, it was not, the access was not difficult. So it's within these 2 years that we cannot now go without NOC. So okay, so the issue was, I was telling you about the shikara. So we devised a instrument to reach at the top of the shikara, and it was totally without air and very dark. So that was the most difficult area to work on. So we had to adjust the shikara, the stones accordingly, and then the columns which were holding the whole structure. So we had to think of many ways, trial and error, and it took us some time. So but we devised a way that we didn't have to raise steel pillars or anything which would not have been nice. So we came for that. Then the material, which was the binding material of the stones, so that we sent for chemical testing to laboratory, and then after that we made our own material, and it was tried. We used to put it on the wall for 15 days, try, and then so it was kind of a long
And
procedure.
did you work with local artisans from Karachi?
Oh yes, Karachi, Liari, the
Yeah.
stone carvers, and you would be happy to know that we trained these stone carvers team on Manora Temple, Varun Dev Temple, and these people created that beautiful stone wall at Islamabad airport. And now they have made a very nice beautiful door for Makli Museum, and we did one exhibition of stone carving with Noor Jahan at Koel. So this team is really working great, and now they get the employment also. Usually what happens is that these old arts and crafts, when people are working in these, they don't get a job, or they don't get money out of it, so they leave this thing. But this team is really successful, and they're
Because
working.
they are how to say stone carver professional, hereditary, you mean?
There was one person who
Okay.
trained these five
And
or six
what
stone
is this
carvers.
community? Do they have a special community or not?
Yes, mostly they're Baloch from Liari, and so
Yeah.
and Sindhi.
Okay. And also, I'd like you to speak about, according to you, what is the relation between Varun Dev and Julelal? Is there any? What was your
Yeah, that's a
thinking?
very interesting thing, because as an archaeologist, we have totally different opinion than anthropologists and social historians. So, but there were three deities or statues on top of one gate, which was obviously added later on, and one of those can be Julelal, because all the symbols which are there, he is sitting on a fish and a lotus, and he is sitting in a posture which is usually in iconography it is dedicated to Julelal. So one of them is that, plus the caretaker, he says that people call it Julelal, and you know that Varun Dev is actually known as Julelal also, like Julelal or Darya Peer, or so it is there, but these are, I think, later editions, not early. So and then we have a very nice photograph of Julelal inside the temple where people come. And one interesting thing was that after the incident of Babri Mosque, this temple was closed from 1990s. So we opened it in 2017 for the public, and they have started celebrating Diwali and Holi and all other
Okay, so
Hindu
the
celebrations,
first
festivals.
puja or other ritual were performed in 2017 for the first time.
Yes,
After.
yes.
And so who
We
is-
started in 2016. We opened the door. It was totally blocked with the wooden planks and sealed. Yeah, you saw it. So that, and there is a Shiv temple also. There's a small Shiv temple. Yeah, close, just next to it. But we had a grant only for Varun Dev. But Shiv Temple we did from our own NGO's funding. So we did the restoration of that as well.
But according to you, the basic building of Varun Dev, how old is it about?
It's about 200 years old. And while we were doing research on this, we came to know that this temple was shifted. On the Manora, it was somewhere else. In 1880, it was shifted because of some construction. So that could be another reason that it was so weak and it was not stable. So we have evidence of that. Plus, this island is a multi-religious, multi-ethnic island. You know,
There is a church.
There are two churches, there are two gurdwaras, and so we wanted to make it a multi-religious or multi-ethnic project also. So our teams involved Sikh people and Hindus and Muslims. So all of these people were working, so it was kind of a very interesting community. You know, there is a small kind of a gurdwara also, or for where Guru Nanak came. There is a theory that he came when he was going to Makkah and he was sitting there. So we conserved that also, and then the temple, and then there is a Shiv temple. So it's a very interesting area, and everybody was respectful for this thing, and we had no complaint or anything from anywhere. In fact, Pakistan Navy was very happy that we are restoring this. They were looking for somebody to do the restoration of this temple. So there was no opposition or anything, and everybody was happy. And they are really happy now. It's open to public and everybody goes there, especially on Sundays and Saturdays. A lot of Muslims, thousands of people go there now. So it's a big thing for us.
And since the temple was closed for years, how did the present caretaker come? How was he called?
This was taking. This temple was under the Hindu community. So there are two associations of Hindus.
Yes, there is a Hindu Panchayat of Pakistan.
Yes, so they had this caretaker, and in the year 2006, Government of Sindh, Department of Antiquities gave some funding for the restoration of the temple. But instead of doing the restoration, because I think they were not the technical people, so they built a room just next to the temple, which is actually an eyesore to see. So the people were sitting there, and they have their own photograph of I think Darya Peer or Jhulelal. So this Hindu community used to go there and pray, and because the temple was closed. So with that funding of Government of Sindh, so the Hindu community did that instead of doing the restoration. But the caretaker was there, Christian, and he was paid from the Hindu community, by the Hindu community. But when we came in, so we started paying him.
He's from Karachi?
Yes, he's from Sindhi? Karachi. He's Sindhi Hindu. Yes, and he is still there. When you go there, he will tell you stories, and he thinks that this is Darya Peer and Jhulelal. And he says that most of people who come now, they think it is Jhulelal. And of course, it is a myth, and it is related to Indus and sea water. So it's everywhere. Like we have Ghazi Abdullah Shah Ghazi, and we think that he saved Karachi from tsunami. So these are very normal religious beliefs that people have. So, but as an archaeologist, we have no such evidence. So it's social anthropology, and it's totally different. It's the social anthropologist role which comes afterwards.
But that's why it's very interesting to exchange ideas.
And of course, anything related to water is Varun or Jhulelal or Zinda Peer or...
because since you talk also about archives, that you were able to find archives according to which the temple was shifted, but in the archives, is it already named Varun Dev Temple?
Yes, it is already.
So it is
it is actually the only Varun Dev temple in South Asia, I believe.
Exactly.
I think so. We didn't find any other Varun Dev. So it's very unique in that sense also.
Yes, and also because what is interesting in the context of Hindu architecture of saint, it is the shikara.
Yes,
Because in
it's
the other
yes, that
oldest
another
temple,
thing.
especially those devoted to Julelal at
Yeah.
Udarolal, as you know, there is a dome.
Dome always.
Yeah.
So this is the only one having this shikara.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to access there. You couldn't breathe, and only one person could enter, and it was totally dark. But we are happy that we stabilized the shikara, and now it is, when you go and see it, it is stabilized and it is straight. So it's we are really happy about it.
Okay, and so a last question maybe. So, of course, you talked about the shikara, but what were the other main technical difficulties during the renovation?
Main thing was the replacement of the stones and the binding material, which we did testing, and then to how to create the same material which doesn't, contradicts with the stone. And we replaced a lot of stones which were totally eaten up by sand and sea corrosion. So
salt.
that was one thing, to reach up to that height and then replace them safely. And plus the two columns I'm telling you about at the mandap. So that was very, very difficult to. It took us about several months to think of the strategy, how to. It was like, somebody is standing on the legs, but his legs are not taking the weight. So they were totally bent like this. So that was the major thing. Shikara and those two columns were really difficult decision to take up. Plus then we had to find the old kind of tiles to replace some of the places where there were no tiles. Then of course the iconography is very typical, the different deities which are there. Then we have tiles from Japan, since from Second World War, when Japanese tiles started coming in. Then it's a very, very beautiful combination of different time periods. Then we have slogans of freedom on top of that. So Bande Mataram is a very famous slogan. It is on top of the temple.
During the nationalist movement.
Yes, so
against
it's a very, very important and very interesting historical place, and we are glad that we
and
could save
also
it.
because I went there 20 years back, so it was closed. But I remember there were some ceramics also.
Yes,
Still
yes, there. They were all later editions. Then we found many interesting plaques, commemorative plaques, which different Hindu families were putting whenever they were restoring or adding something into the temple. So you have that plaque. And very, very interesting thing is that Pakistan Navy told us to establish the boundaries of the temple. So we did some excavations to find that how far is the limit of the temple. So during excavation we found so many other plaques which were broken and buried in. And then some of the plaques were in the well. There is a well also.
Oh, there is a well.
Yes, so it was closed down, but we opened that well also.
But
so this is also
you
very.
know that this well was used for ceremonial.
Yes, we believe that. We
Because it
don't
is
know any.
Julelal, the symbol also.
Yes, so it is there. So we opened that. It was full of garbage, so junk, and we cleaned that well also. And these plaques are very interesting. We have put those there at the temple. So they were all buried. So we found them during excavation. Then a pillar was buried as well. So it shows that it has gone through several renovations and procedures.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Asma. Thank you very much for the
Welcome.
interview.